Your garage already contains survival gear. It just has terrible marketing. A hand truck moves water, plastic sheeting seals damage, a pry bar creates leverage, a utility knife cuts material, zip ties make temporary repairs, buckets protect supplies, a work light signals, and moving blankets fight cold. None of these objects requires apocalypse cosplay, and each solves a different problem when replacements stop arriving. The trick is knowing what the item can actually do, where it fails, and how to store it so your emergency equipment is not buried behind 12 years of holiday decorations. Start with the hand truck, because shortages turn weight into a transportation problem fast. One 5-gallon water container can weigh more than 40 pounds, and carrying several by hand wastes strength you may need for stairs, cleanup, repairs, or helping somebody else. A basic 2-wheel dolly lets your legs and the wheels handle more of that load instead of your arms and lower back. Water, bagged food, firewood, propane cylinders stored according to local safety rules, and sealed sanitation supplies all become easier to move across smooth ground. The useful demonstration is simple. Place the heaviest object low against the frame, center the load, secure anything that can shift, then tilt the dolly only far enough to balance it. If the load starts steering you instead of the other way around, you overloaded the setup. Now test the route before the emergency. Roll the empty dolly from your garage to the place you would actually move supplies, checking thresholds, gravel, steps, tight corners, and cracked pavement, because a perfect tool on the wrong surface becomes expensive garage sculpture. The limitation is terrain and control. Small hard wheels hate deep gravel and stairs, wet ramps reduce traction, and tall unstable loads can tip suddenly. So do not stack cargo above what you can safely see around and control with both hands. Store the dolly upright against a wall with the wheels accessible and the cargo straps hanging beside it. Check tire condition if it uses pneumatic wheels. Keep the axle free of rust and debris, and never make your emergency plan depend on a tool buried behind a dead lawnmower. That one object can replace repeated exhausting carries with controlled movement, which matters long before anything gets dramatic. If practical preparedness built from ordinary stuff is your kind of survival planning, subscribe, because the next garage item can turn a broken window into a manageable problem in minutes. A roll of heavy plastic sheeting looks like painting equipment until wind, broken glass, roof damage, dust, or smoke infiltration creates an opening you need to control. It will not rebuild a wall, but it can temporarily separate your indoor space from rain, debris, drafts, and dirty work areas. For a broken window, remove people from the immediate glass hazard first, wear gloves and eye protection, and deal only with loose fragments you can reach safely. Then cut plastic larger than the opening and fasten it to sound surrounding material without leaning through the damaged frame. The extra material matters because plastic pulled drum tight can tear when wind loads it. Leave enough overlap for secure attachment. Reinforce the fastening edges when possible, and think of the sheet as a temporary weather barrier rather than a structural repair. Plastic also creates an isolation zone when you are cleaning a filthy garage corner, dealing with dust from a repair, or keeping muddy equipment away from living space. That separation does not magically remove airborne hazards, but controlling where contamination travels is better than spreading it through every room on your boots. Its biggest limitation is heat and flame. Thin plastic melts, burns, tears on sharp edges, and can trap moisture, so keep it away from heaters, flames, hot exhaust, and any appliance requiring ventilation. Never seal a room containing combustion equipment. Storage is almost insultingly easy. Keep the roll dry, rolled rather than crushed, somewhere sharp tools cannot puncture it, with painter's tape or another suitable fastening material nearby, so you do not discover during a storm that your barrier has 37 mysterious holes. The payoff is not a fortress. It is control over one damaged opening, one dirty work zone, or one drafty barrier while you decide on a proper repair, and temporary control buys time without pretending plastic wrap has suddenly earned a contractor's license. Next is the pry bar, a tool whose entire job is turning a small amount of movement into a larger mechanical advantage. In a crisis, that means lifting a heavy object slightly, separating nailed boards during authorized repairs, aligning stubborn materials, or creating a gap so another support can be inserted safely. Use it for leverage, not movie nonsense. Slide the appropriate end under an object you are permitted to move, use a solid fulcrum, apply steady pressure, and move the load only enough to accomplish the task instead of trying to launch it into orbit. That tiny lift can be useful when leveling a generator platform, shifting storm debris that is light enough to handle safely, or getting a shim beneath a heavy shelf. The principle is simple. Leverage changes how force is applied, but it does not make the object lighter or remove the consequences if it falls. Never place fingers, feet, or any body part beneath a suspended load. If something must remain elevated, support it with equipment rated for that purpose, because a pry bar is a lever, not a jack stand, and optimism has no load rating. There is also a legal and practical boundary worth keeping obvious. A pry bar is useful for your own damaged property and authorized repairs. Using it to defeat locks, force entry, or access somebody else's property turns preparedness into a completely different problem. Inspect the shaft for bending, severe rust, cracks, and damaged ends before trusting it under force. A compromised bar can slip or fail unexpectedly, and greasy handles make controlled pressure harder, so clean it before storage instead of leaving it marinating beneath a leaking bottle of motor oil. Store it horizontally in a rack or secured where the heavy steel cannot fall from above. Keep the working ends protected from constant moisture, and position it where you can reach it without digging through loose blades, chemicals, or collapsing stacks of garage junk. The fourth item is the utility knife, because emergency improvisation creates a ridiculous amount of cutting. Cardboard becomes insulation backing, plastic sheeting needs trimming, rope needs sizing, damaged packaging needs opening, and repair materials rarely arrive in the perfect dimensions once the supply chain is no longer doing favors for you. The survival advantage is precision, not aggression. A sharp utility blade requires less force than a dull one, so you can make controlled cuts through common materials while keeping your free hand away from the cutting path and using a stable surface underneath. For plastic sheeting, mark the size first, place the material flat, and cut with several controlled passes instead of trying to muscle through a thick folded bundle. For cardboard, a straight edge can guide the cut, but keep fingers above and behind the blade path rather than wrapped over the edge. A useful field test is boring on purpose. Extend only enough blade to cut the material. Excess exposed blade increases the chance of snapping, slipping, or cutting deeper than intended, and an emergency is already inconvenient enough without adding a preventable hand injury. The limitation is material thickness and blade strength. A utility knife is excellent for sheet goods, tape, packaging, some rope, and light flexible materials, but it is a terrible substitute for a saw, bolt cutter, or structural cutting tool. Retract the blade immediately after the cut and dispose of used blades in a rigid puncture-resistant container according to local rules. Loose razor blades tossed into a drawer are not preparedness, they are a surprise blood donation program for the future version of you. Store the knife locked or retracted, dry and separated from children, with spare compatible blades in their original protected dispenser. Check that the mechanism locks firmly, because a cheap handle with a slipping blade becomes most dangerous exactly when you apply pressure. Now we get to temporary repair, and the humble zip tie deserves more respect than the tactical aisle usually gives it. A handful of quality cable ties can restrain loose hoses, bundle broken gear, secure lightweight panels, organize wiring that is already electrically safe, and stabilize repairs until proper hardware becomes available. Suppose a plastic storage rack cracks at a joint but is not carrying dangerous weight. You can unload it completely, align the pieces, use multiple ties around sound material, tighten them evenly, and create a temporary brace that keeps the parts together while you relocate the contents. Zip ties work best in tension, meaning they are good at holding things together but poor at resisting every kind of bending, heat, abrasion, or heavy structural load. That distinction matters when the repair is supporting something that could injure you if it fails. They can also secure a rolled tarp, bundle extension cords, keep a loose backpack strap from flapping, or organize small equipment inside a bucket. Leave a little planning room, because tightening every tie to maximum force can crush soft tubing or make later adjustment impossible. Never use zip ties as climbing gear, vehicle suspension repair, electrical insulation, life support equipment, or a substitute for rated structural fasteners. Heat and ultraviolet exposure can weaken some plastics, and sharp cut ends can slice skin, so trim them cleanly when the repair allows it. For storage, keep several sizes in a sealed bag or small parts box away from direct sunlight and extreme heat. Add a compact cutter beside them, because discovering that your emergency repair is permanent only because you cannot remove the tie is comedy with terrible timing. The real advantage is speed. Zip ties let you stabilize non-critical problems long enough to move, organize, protect, or wait for a proper repair, which is exactly what improvisation should do. Reduce chaos without lying to you about permanence. Halfway through this garage audit, pick one object you already own that became more useful after seeing its limitation instead of just its capability. That answer matters, because survival gear gets safer the moment you stop asking, "Can this work?" and start asking, "Under what conditions does it fail?" The fifth item is the 5-gallon bucket with a tight-fitting lid, and storage becomes a crisis skill much faster than most people expect. Loose supplies attract moisture, dirt, pests, accidental spills, and the ancient garage law stating that whatever you need most will roll behind the heaviest cabinet. A clean bucket can organize dry tools, cleaning supplies, packaged food, sanitation gear, pet supplies, or small emergency equipment, but separate categories that should not contaminate one another. Do not use a bucket that previously held unknown chemicals for food or drinking water storage just because you scrubbed it until it smells optimistic. For dry emergency supplies, place moisture-sensitive items in sealed inner bags or containers before putting them into the bucket. Snap on the lid, label the contents and packing date on the outside, then keep a simple list so you do not open 6 identical white buckets during a blackout. Buckets are also useful for carrying awkward small items because the handle keeps them together, but weight adds up quickly. Test the handle and rim before loading, avoid overfilling, and carry heavy buckets short distances rather than discovering halfway down the driveway that your grip strength has declared independence. The limitation is that ordinary buckets are not automatically safe for every purpose. Food, drinking water, fuel, chemicals, waste, and general gear require different materials, cleanliness standards, and storage practices, so never assume a convenient container makes incompatible content safe. Inspect the lid gasket if present, handle attachment points, cracks around the base, and damage from sunlight. A bucket that leaks slowly can destroy paper supplies or corrode tools for weeks before you notice, especially when it sits directly on a damp concrete floor. Store clean buckets nested only when completely dry, or keep loaded buckets labeled and elevated slightly where you can inspect beneath them. Do not build towering, unstable stacks, and keep hazardous materials in their original approved containers rather than treating every 5-gallon pail like a chemistry degree. The sixth function is signaling, and an LED work light can do far more than illuminate an oil change. During a blackout, roadside breakdown, storm cleanup, or neighborhood evacuation, controlled light can help you work, mark a location, make yourself visible, or communicate where people should gather. The demonstration starts with power discipline. Fully charge the light before you need it, learn its brightness modes, and run a time test at home so you know roughly how long your particular unit lasts instead of trusting the heroic claims printed on its box. For roadside signaling, place the light where approaching drivers can see illumination without blinding them, while you remain in a safe location away from traffic. A flashing mode can increase visibility on some models, but visibility never replaces distance from moving vehicles or proper roadside safety equipment. At home, point the lamp at a white wall or ceiling to spread softer light through a room instead of staring into the LEDs. Lower brightness often gives you enough illumination for cooking, sorting supplies, or checking equipment while conserving battery life. There is a security trade-off. Bright light makes tasks easier, but during a neighborhood-wide outage it can also advertise activity through windows, so use curtains, interior positioning, and only as much brightness as the task requires. The limitation is battery dependence and temperature. Rechargeable cells lose usefulness when neglected, damaged, or stored improperly, so inspect for swelling, corrosion, cracked housings, and charging problems, and follow the manufacturer's instructions rather than improvising with incompatible chargers. Keep the light charged, accessible, and stored with the correct cable or charger in a dry location. Run a quick function test every few months because emergency lighting should fail during maintenance day, not during the exact minute you hear a tree branch land somewhere expensive. The seventh item is a moving blanket, the thick padded blanket normally sacrificed to refrigerators, furniture, and the backs of rental trucks. When power fails in cold weather, that ugly quilted slab becomes insulation, padding, draft control, equipment protection, and a way to concentrate warmth where people actually are. If one room must stay warmer than the rest, hang the blanket over an interior doorway or place it against a cold wall while preserving any required ventilation. The goal is reducing drafts and slowing heat loss, not sealing combustion appliances into an airtight box. You can also place a moving blanket beneath sleeping pads on a cold floor to reduce direct contact with the surface. It will not replace proper sleeping insulation, but adding layers between your body and cold concrete is usually more useful than wrapping every available blanket only around your shoulders. Outside, a moving blanket can protect equipment from bumps during transport or add wind protection when used beneath a proper waterproof cover. Most moving blankets are not reliable rain shelters by themselves because their fabric can absorb water and become heavy, cold, and miserable. That moisture limitation is the one people forget. If the blanket gets wet, dry it completely before storing, because mildew, odor, and fabric degradation can quietly turn a useful insulation layer into a biological science project nobody requested. Keep moving blankets away from open flames, hot exhaust, space heater elements, and anything else capable of igniting fabric. If you use one near a vehicle for padding or repair work, remove it before starting or moving the vehicle so it cannot contact hot or rotating parts. Roll or fold the blankets loosely once dry and store them on a shelf where rodents and moisture are controlled. Keeping one near your vehicle gear and another near home emergency supplies gives you fast access without converting the garage into a textile avalanche. That brings us to the 8th item, and it is the one that can make several of the others more useful. A basic garden tarp. A tarp gives you rain protection for gear, a temporary overhead cover, ground separation, privacy, and weather shielding while more permanent repairs are unavailable. If rain is entering through a damaged but structurally stable area you can access safely, a tarp can redirect water away from supplies without pretending you repaired the building. Keep yourself off unstable roofs, away from damaged electrical service, and out of any structure showing signs of collapse. For a simple gear cover, create a slope so water runs off instead of collecting in the middle. Secure the tarp to stable anchor points without stretching it brutally tight, because wind loads and pooled water can tear grommets or turn a loose sheet into a flapping sail. On the ground, a tarp can keep clean gear off mud or create a dry staging area while you unload supplies. Fold dirty surfaces inward afterward and keep that tarp separate from anything used around food, bedding, or other clean equipment. The limitation is durability. Thin tarps puncture on sharp corners, ultraviolet light weakens many plastics, and cheap grommets can pull out under stress, so inspect corners, seams, and attachment points before counting on the tarp during a storm. Do not store a tarp wet and folded. Rinse off dirt when practical. Dry it thoroughly. Fold it so damaged areas remain visible for later repair, and keep compatible cordage nearby without relying on knots or anchors you have never practiced. And notice what just happened. None of these 8 objects became magical. Their value came from matching one ordinary garage item to one specific emergency problem, then respecting the failure point that keeps improvisation from becoming recklessness. The hand truck buys mobility, plastic sheeting buys separation, the pry bar buys leverage, the utility knife buys controlled cutting, zip ties buy temporary repair, buckets buy organization, the work light buys visibility, and blankets plus the tarp buy environmental protection. That is a small system, not a shopping spree. Your next move is simple. Walk into the garage today, pull these items into the open, inspect each one, and put the accessories it needs beside it. Charge the light, check the dolly, discard damaged blades safely, dry the blankets and tarp, and label the buckets before an emergency turns organization into a scavenger hunt. If turning ordinary household equipment into realistic preparedness is useful to you, subscribe. Then tell me which garage item you had underestimated most, because the best survival gear is often the equipment you already own, already understand, and can put to work before the stores ever close.